Hi everybody. Today we're going to start Chapter 2 in Accent on Algebra. Chapter 2 is going to have us solving some equations, and today we're going to get started by undoing operations. So let's see what that looks like. Go ahead and get started. If you don't have your notebook in front of you, now is the perfect time to go get it. Title your notes with 2.1 Undoing Operations. Today's date is 4/16. So before we get into what undoing operations even means or looks like, let's just talk for a minute about operations in general. So we know some operations we've used before are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We've even seen squares, as well as square roots. So let's talk for a minute about inverse operations. That word inverse kind of means opposite. And this is going to be helpful to us today when we're trying to undo some operations. So if we think of inverse operations, I want you to think of operations that undo each other. So let's think of a few that would do that. If I'm adding, the inverse operation of adding would be subtracting. You know, if I add something and then I take it away, it's like I never did anything in the first place. The opposite or the inverse of multiplication is division. And the opposite or inverse of squaring is taking the square root in most cases. So these are the major ones that I want us to focus on today, kind of the pairs here. We probably actually won't get into squaring and square rooting too much, but it's good to keep them in mind. So let's do an example where we're going to have to use some inverse operations here. Clarence's exercise routine. One morning, Clarence made a routine that included 7 different exercises. Just before he began, his trainer added 2 more exercises. Okay, I'm already seeing some numbers here, so I'm gonna start underlining maybe important things. Okay, added 2 more. Clarence completed 12 repetitions of each exercise. He went through his routine 3 times. How many exercises did he perform? There's a lot to keep track of here. Like, I might want to read this 2 or 3 times just to make sure I'm familiar with the information. And I want us to organize this today in something you've seen before that maybe you didn't like so much in the past, but now I guarantee you're going to love it, and that is a flowchart. So we're going to start our flowchart with our first number here. So Clarence made a routine that included 7 different exercises. So I'm going to put 7 here. And then, just before he began, his trainer added 2 more. So I'm going to add 2 to that initial number. And I'm going to make another node here. So now I have 9. So he's doing 9 exercises. Clarence completed 12 repetitions of each exercise. Repetitions, what operation do you think of when you hear that? I think of multiplication. So I'm going to multiply this by 12. 9 multiplied by 12 is 108. And then it says he went through his routine 3 times. So times, we think of multiplication. So 108 times 3 is 324. Whoa! So how many exercises did he perform? 324 exercises. Flowcharts are just a nice way to organize all of this information. It's hard to keep track of all of the different things you have to do, so we have this nice way of showing every step. Let's do another example, one where I'm thinking of a mystery number. So if you take my mystery number and you multiply it by 4, multiply my number by 4, and then subtract 5, you get 27. What's my number? So here we might make a flowchart, but I don't really know what to start with because I don't know my mystery number. But I know that if I multiply this by 4, multiplied by 4, I'm going to get something else, and I don't know what that something is, but I know that if I then subtract 5, I will get 27. Interesting. Here's where inverse operations comes in handy. So if I know that the end result is 27, and I know that I subtracted 5 as that last step to get there, to go backwards, I'm going to add 5. So this middle number is going to be 32, because that number minus 5 gave me 27. Now I'm going to take that extra step to get back to the beginning, and I'm going to do the inverse of this, multiplying by 4. So 32 divided by 4, because that's the inverse, will give me 8. So let's test this. If this is my mystery number here, then I'm going to test this by multiplying by 4, okay, 32, subtracting 5 to get 27. Nice, it works out. So my mystery number is 8. Okay, let's do a few more just flow charts. And actually, I would like you to give these a try on your own using the operations that are given to see if you can fill in the bubbles. Go ahead and pause the video right here and give these a try. Okay, you should have ended up with these numbers here. And we already know the steps for these, so we didn't have to really write any work. I mean, I would like work on the side for something like 2 2/3 times 6. But down here in part B, we did have to show work for how we got to each step. So be sure, if you didn't this time, to make sure to write those arrows with what you're doing to get to each node. Let's do a couple more. Same thing as before. Pause the video right here, give these a try on your own, and you can check your answer in a moment. Okay, so you should have gotten some numbers that look like this. Go ahead and check them over. I even provided my work for these on the side. This is typically what I would like to see on work that you do. And I circled this last question mark for a reason, because there are actually 2 ways that we can get to 1 using one step. So if I take 14/15 and I add 1/15, that will get me to 1. So this is one operation here that could go in place of the question mark. Another one is, if you remember our reciprocals, you could multiply by 15/14 to get 1. So here are 2 possibilities for operations you could do for that last one. All right, that brings us to the end of the lesson. Go ahead and flip back to the Google Doc to check out your assignment for today, and thank you for joining me.